Welcome on Texas football. It's time for the state of the program. This week, we're going to talk a little recruiting. CJ, you got DKR there in the background. I see that you're out and about today. You were at Steve Sarkisian's press conference, signing day press conference. I think it's important that we use that kind of as the crux of what we're going to talk about on this week's state of the program, brought to you by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, Steve Sarkisian talked a lot about his new director or his new general manager of the recruiting department, Brandon Harris, as well as John Michael Jones, Taylor Searles, and the rest that have been elevated in the last 24 hours. What was your sense of what Sark had to say and overall feeling, as well as where he goes next in that role?
Yeah, I got a sense that he trusts Brandon Harris tremendously. I think that there was a very strong relationship in which Brandon Harris and Steve Sarkisian got off to the right foot very early upon Sarkisian's career here at Texas. He talked about both of them, have a similar mindset. They were both former quarterbacks. They both understand what it's like to play football at a high level and have success there, but they share the similar outlook on recruiting. And at this point, 3 years in, I think it's worth mentioning that the trust is certainly there and the results are there as well. We talked about 3 straight top 6 classes for Sarkisian here at Texas. And with all the responsibilities that head coaches are now tasked with, whether it be the portal, high school recruiting, NIL, on-field coaching. There's a lot that is on the plate of Steve Sarkisian. He trusts Brandon Harris to be that guy in a room or in a meeting to get things done and be that extension of his right hand. So that was really the big justification and kind of theme that I heard in terms of why he was elevated to the general manager at Texas. A pretty unique deal and news that came out just late last night.
Yeah, adding on to that, Sark, if I'm not mistaken, said he's not really done in that capacity. But did he give us any clues of what he meant by that? I mean, in that recruiting / scouting role?
No, and Sarkisian's really good at keeping things kind of vague when he doesn't have to go back into a lot of details. He did that just now today. He did say that Texas isn't done adding to that player personnel kind of recruiting department. Obviously, we saw the 4 promotions late last night. I would expect, another very well hire. He's going to do his due diligence. That's something that we expect now from Steve Sarkisian. But where that's going to go, what kind of role it is, very little information there.
It's interesting. I think that this is a move to secure the people that he had because he didn't want them going anywhere and following Billy Glasscock, et cetera, probably. And so it secures those folks. And now he can go out and maybe look for somebody else that complements what Brandon Harris, John Michael Jones, and Taylor Searles and the folks do there at the University of Texas. Not surprising that he would kind of take that long-term look, given, to your point, the momentum they've created on the road. All right, one of the questions you asked, Sark, and I want to mention that next, is the fact that you asked him about his addition to the staff of Kenny Baker, the defensive line coach, and Johnny Nansen, the linebackers coach. CJ, tell people what you asked him about and then what Sark's response was and what you really felt about how he proceeded to answer your question.
Yeah, we've talked about it at length, the overall, a national addition to this staff that Texas is getting with Kenny Baker and Johnny Nansen. Obviously, the ties out west into the deep south. It jumps off the resume for both guys. Texas added 10 players from the 2024 class out of state. 10 of the 22 that signed with Texas were from outside of the Texas state lines. I asked Sark basically, how did you feel about, why it was so important for those guys to have such deep connections to other places that don't necessarily involve your backyard right away? And the answer he gave was pretty interesting. He said that, coming off the season that Texas had in which they played for a college football playoff spot, potential spot in the national championship, seeing where this program is headed, he feels that Texas can recruit higher at a more traveled national scale. There's a larger, broader area in which Texas is now an appealing school to prospects all across the country, not necessarily ones right in their backyard here in Texas. So it was interesting to me. Obviously, he also mentioned, again, kind of going off of the busy plate that he has, the busy schedule. He's like, adding Johnny Nansen, a guy that's very well established and connected out in California, takes a little bit off of me in the sense that I can rely on him to go do his job out there because I've worked with him in the past and I know what he's going to bring. And a little bit on Kenny Baker, because I thought this was very interesting. He mentioned that hiring might have been a little out of the blue to some. Sarkisian mentioned that his due diligence in finding the right role, especially with Kenny Baker, I mean, that was a response of him calling Mike McDaniels and Chris Greer, the general manager and head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So he went up the chain of command at every which, kind of turn in which to find Kenny Baker. I thought it was very impressive. And he certainly did his due diligence, as we've come to know he will do for hirings and promotions.
All right, I had some other questions for you that Sark touched on at the press conference. But first, I want to say thanks again to our sponsor. That's Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. Adam and his firm have been helping injured Texans for 2 decades now. Give them a shout over at loweylawfirm.com. That's loweylawfirm.com. They'll give you a free consultation if you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, accident, whatever, motorcycle accident, whatever you may need. That's loweylawfirm.com. Thanks again, Adam, for your support of On Texas Football. CJ, wide receivers seem to be a big topic of conversation for Steve Sarkisian as well. What did he have to say about the 4 young receivers he's bringing in? And did he talk much also about the 3 portal transfers that he's bringing in as well?
Well, he talked a lot about the 3 portal guys, and I think that was for good reason. He mentioned there's a lot of confidence in the room of the 3 guys returning from last year's roster, but those were the only 3. And I think that was a pretty significant quote from today. He called it would have been a malpractice for him as the head coach of the Texas football team to walk into a season with only 3 returning wide receivers on his roster. And so that was the reason to go out, add 4 guys from the class of 24, and then going out and finding 3 quality guys with a lot of experience. He did mention only 8 returning receptions among those 3 receivers, Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, and Ryan Niblett. He needed to go out and find guys that would get the job done and have proven to get the job done at previous stops. So there's a lot of excitement there. He mentioned the speed and the versatility was something that certainly we've talked about as well, and he echoed it a little bit today. The versatility that I think extends a little bit deeper into the 24 class is obviously the height and the range of a Parker Livingstone, a Ryan Wingo, Freddie Dubose. I think it's really interesting that those guys don't necessarily fit the mold in which you saw Texas go out and get from the portal, but that he's expecting those guys to maintain a versatile positionless approach in which they're cross-trained at every position on the offense. Certainly something that I am very encouraged by, and something that he mentioned even the wide receivers from last year were taking that route and kind of being cross-trained at every position on the offense.
He kind of weaved off of recruiting a little bit and talked a little bit about Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning as well. What did he have to say about the 2 signal callers for the Longhorns?
Well, first off, he's very happy that Quinn Ewers is back for year 3, and I think most head coaches would be following a season like this. Quinn Ewers also, the question did arise, whether or not Quinn is going to be the QB1 or if a battle would ensue this spring. He shut it down very quickly. He let it be known that Quinn Ewers is going to be a starting quarterback, as I think most of us expected. But in the sense of having Arch Manning back on campus for year 2, he's excited. He's talked with Arch about continuing his path as a Texas football player, not necessarily comparing himself to other prospects around the state or other guys in his class, but really just going about what it takes to be the best version of you day by day. And at Texas, that means being right now that quarterback 2 on the roster and just getting as many reps in practice and individual workouts and those player-only, throwing sessions as well. That's going to be a big part of the development for Arch Manning. But right now, Sarkisian was over the moon about having both of them on campus this spring, as well as the addition of Trey Owens coming in.
It sounds like to me, and Jerry Hamilton said it on some live streams too as well, this is going to be an opportunity for us to really see Arch Manning for the first time in extended action, because when they go in the orange and white game on April 20th, CJ, it's going to be, quarterback 1 is Quinn, quarterback 2 is Arch, and we're going to see him with 50 reps instead of 10, like he had this past spring game, or like he had in a couple of games this year, whether it be against Texas Tech or whomever, Oklahoma State, et cetera, right? And so I think this spring will be our first true look at Arch Manning. So I think everybody's ready for that. Other news, what else did he have to say about some portal guys, whether it be Trey Moore or Kendrick Blackshire any of those guys, Andrew Makuba, et cetera.
Yeah, he mentioned Makuba coming back home was really big for him. He also mentioned the role Jahdae Barron played, really the experience and the versatility, as we've talked about in the past, added to that defensive back room is something that he is ecstatic about. He's a guy with skins on the wall. He understands what it's like to be successful at this level. That is going to be very important to a Texas secondary that saw a lot of attrition from a year ago. Trey Moore, he mentioned the excitement around getting after the passer. Texas had done a pretty solid job in the past couple of years, but they've not done a great job at getting the quarterback down to the ground. With Trey Moore, that's exactly what he's known to do. And then Kendrick Blackshear, he talked about having an SEC-ready linebacker joining the room right now, in which there's not a guarantee or really a spot locked down in that linebacker room at the moment. So those three guys he's really encouraged about. And then he talked about Sevilla as well in the defensive line. Texas clearly lost a lot from last year when it comes to Sweat, Murphy, and Carter. Sevilla's a guy that has a lot of experience. He mentioned that his multi-year contributions at Arizona is something that stood off the chart to him. He also mentioned being able to be coached by Johnny Nansen as well as something that gave him a pretty high remarks in terms of what they could get with Sevilla and why Texas went to pursue him.
Interesting. So basically the prior knowledge of Sevilla's game and ability is what started him there. I want to go back to Makuba and Jahdae Barron real quick. Did he give you any sense of how they're going to play those two? Because both of them played nickel last year, actually the last 2 years. Barron obviously started for the Longhorns. Makuba started for Clemson. Did he give you a sense of which one might play safety, which one might get more of a look at corner, et cetera?
Again, Sarkisian's really good at keeping the cards underfold if he's able to, right? Like he's not going to show his hand too soon. This spring will really be the first idea of how these dominoes fall into that Texas secondary. Sarkisian didn't really go into detail about how he sees them fit. He didn't really do that on the offensive side of the ball, though we can kind of take a little close guess, I guess. He did mention on the offensive side of the ball, Matthew Golden's probably the most physical of that bunch. So whether or not you've seen him in that Jordan Whittington role early on at Texas, something monitor there. But as far as the defensive backs and Makuba's addition, along with Jahdae Barron, there wasn't much of a shown hand by Steve Sarkisian.
Let me ask you this. Did he mention Amari Niblack at all? The Alabama tight end transfer that I think is going to kind of open up the offense a little bit. Decidedly different player than Gunnar Helm, more of a complimentary player to him. What is the thought on that?
He's the one that fell through the cracks. There wasn't a whole lot of mention of Niblack today. I think maybe by design. Again, we talked about maybe keeping and there's 7 months to go before the season gets around here, but there wasn't a lot of mention of him. I do think that complimentary battle will be seen again in the spring, but I did not hear a whole lot other than he's on campus and working really hard.
Good stuff, CJ. All right, I got a couple more questions for you. I want to say thanks one last time to Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck accident, or on a motorcycle and think you might be due compensation, give Adam and his group a ring. Reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com for a free consultation today. That's Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. All right, final questions for you, CJ. What was your overall take on Steve Sarkisian's presser today? Like, what are the things that you're going to remember?
He mentioned he's addicted to winning a championship. And I think to me, that's the biggest thing because he said, we got a little taste. We understood what it took to get there. And we came up short. Our best shot at the end just wasn't enough, but we were close. Right now, he's in that mold where I think it's all guns a-blazing, basically. I'm speaking for Steve Sarkisian, but I see it as he's looking at us saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win a championship here, whether that be portal additions, high school recruiting, whatever it takes, staff additions even. This is going to be the place that I've really wanted to win a championship at. And now that I'm here and we've gotten so close, it's all about getting over the hump. And so I think that they're constructing a roster right now to compete for national championships, compete for SEC championships immediately next year, and certainly have that continued mindset and culture inside the walls at Moncrief to ensure that this is the reason why we're all here at Texas is to win a championship.
All right, last thing for you. Any surprises to you today? Anything that kind of go, whoa, wait a minute. What did he just say? Anything like that from Sark?
You know, I'd have to go through it again, the transcript. I don't. Nothing jumped off the table to me other than maybe another addition to the recruiting department. Of course, you lose one, you're probably going to gain one there, but nothing too significant in the sense that whoa, unless you're a national pundit looking for clicks, thinking, well, darn it, he just gave away my Texas QB battle theme for the next 4 or 5 months, but nothing too significant from Sarkisian today.
Okay. All right. That's CJ Vogel live from DKR there in the background. Wind blowing. CJ hanging out for us and doing us right on Texas football. All right. That's been the State of the Program special edition this week, sponsored by Adam Lowy. CJ, thank you so much, bud. We'll see you later tonight on the live stream. For CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been State of the Program on Texas football. Hook 'em.